Habakkuk 2:2 says, write the vision and make it plain, so they that see it can take it and run with it. This is the channel where faith and vision collide to bring forth a manifestation. You're watching the Vision Channel. I would like to welcome you to our broadcast tonight. Tonight I'm going to be short. I'm not going to be long tonight. But I want to express what God has shared on my heart. Let me give someone a declaration. A declaration. Let me express what I hear in my spirit. And I think that we're familiar with the passage of scriptures in the book of Romans, in Romans chapter 8, when the Bible expresses, and we know, all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord, that are called according to his purpose. That's Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and who are called according to his purpose. All things work together for your good. Now, this is not my topic of discussion tonight, but tonight, this is for those that may be watching. Tonight, God said all things work together for the good of them. And I'll add Isaiah to it, chapter 54, and I think it's in verse 17. It said, no weapon that is formed against you shall prosper. And every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you say, you shall condemn. So the weapon must be formed for this thing to try to prosper. But God is saying, even though that weapon is formed, all things that work together, that thing that has been formed against you, and it appears that you may not be successful in your endeavors, or that you may not have the sufficiency that you need in this season. But God is saying, even with that opposition, even with the challenges, even with the adversities, even with those struggles, that even with those trials, yes, that God is saying that that thing is going to work for your good because of the love that you have for him. Jesus. There is a love that you have for Christ. And to understand what love is, then in order for Peter to be reconciled back to Jesus, to be reconciled and to be reestablished and to be restored, there's something that needed to be resurrected in Peter. Something that needed to be resurrected in Peter because Peter had died. When Peter betrayed Jesus, then that was like death. So just as Jesus would resurrect on the third day, then Peter would need resurrection. But what resurrected Peter was love. That Jesus would respond. That's why I said all things work together for good to them that love God. So Peter's love for Jesus, that Jesus would respond to Peter and asked him a question. And that question he would ask, Peter, do you love me? Peter, do you love me? And Peter would not respond, and then he would say, well, only you know, Lord. Do you love me more than these? So the thing that was working or could have worked against Peter, because Jesus would reply or respond, those that deny me before men. Jesus said, I will deny you before my Father. So 3 times that he would deny Jesus, that Jesus would come back and ask Peter, Peter, do you love me? He would ask him the same amount of times that he rejected him, the same amount of times that he didn't respect him, the same amount of times. But he came back to him and he said, Peter, do you love me more than these? Out of 12, he would ask him, do you love me more than these? So it told you the capacity that Peter had. So God was trying to shift the curse that was to come on Peter's life. Remember that what a man sows, that shall he also reap? So God should have rejected Peter because Peter sowed the seed of rejecting Jesus. But it was his love that would take place in his life, and his love that he would have for God, his love that he would have for Christ, and Jesus knew the love that he had. Please hear me. Because it was the same love that God was in his son. And it was the same love that Jesus was now getting ready to send Peter. It was the love that he would have for God. And now the circumstance or the situation would now take precedence in Peter's life, and God would cancel out the sin because of the love. Remember what it states in the book of James. In the book of James, it said love covers the multitude of sins. It was the love that Christ would have for Peter that will cancel out the multitude of sins. So Peter was in a place of reconciliation. Something had to resurrect inside of Peter in order for all things now to work for Peter's good. Remember the story that Jesus told about the prodigal son. And he gave a reference that when the prodigal son said he had to pull himself together, right when he was getting ready to feed with the pigs, eat with the pigs, he pulled himself together and said, I shall return unto my father's house, because the servants in my father's house eat better than the pigs, eat better than what I'm about to intervene in. When he finally got back to the father, what did the father say? Not the stuff in the attributes, not the calf that he was about, the fatted calves, not the ring, not the robe, not the shoes. He said, my son was dead, but now he's alive. Something had to resurrect in the son's life in order for acceptance to take place. He said he was once dead. So Peter denying Christ, something had to die. But coming into the contact of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, something had to be resurrected in his life, because Peter was dead, but now he was alive because Jesus was in reference to him and he was communing with him. And the thing that the enemy thought would be his demise became his promotion, because this thing would work together for Peter for his good. That's the very thing. If you may not understand from that perspective, I'll explain it to you. There was another person in scriptures in the book of Genesis that would express it, Joseph, that after the betrayal of his own family, his own brothers would sell him for 20 pieces of silver, would strip him of his favorite coat, sell him to the Midianites, and then he became a slave in Egypt. After everything was said and done, I'm talking to those that God is saying tonight, that all these things that are against you, all these things where the enemy may be talking to God about you, all these things that he said, all these things, this opposition. If you look at the word opposition, I want you to see a word in the word opposition. In that word opposition is the word position. Could it be that the only reason why you seeing the opposition is because you are in position? Yes, because you have positioned your heart, because you have positioned your mind, because you have positioned your soul, your spirit, because you have positioned yourself in God. Is the reason why you are having the opposition because of your position. And Joseph's life, I think this is the challenge for us in the body of Christ. If I'm in reference to Joseph, because Joseph would tell his brothers after he revealed his identity, because they didn't know who he was, he said, you meant it for evil, but God made it for my good. You meant it for evil, but God made it for my good. That Joseph's name means God will add. And I think the challenge with us, in Hebrew, his name means God will add. And I think the challenge with us is we are trying to tell God what to add to make us successful. What to add to give us resources. What to add to heal us. We're asking God for this, and we don't know that what God places in your life, he adds it. All things will work together for your good. So it doesn't matter the good, doesn't matter the bad, doesn't matter the ugly. God is saying that everything that's in your life, that's attached to your life, all of that, the negative, will work together for your good. And this is what God is trying to express in your life. And I'm saying this, and I want you to hear this, because we see what Joseph went through and what he had to encounter. I'm just giving you the reference of the words of Joseph, that he said, you meant it for evil, but my God, the God that I serve, he is going to make it. He made it good. It was for me. It was for my development. It was for my truth. It was for my understanding. This is why David can say, it was good for me that I was afflicted. If not, I would have went astray. Paul would regurgitate the same language, the same verse. It was good for me that I was afflicted. Because they understood something after the affliction, that everything was working for my good. Now, I want to get back to Joseph. I want to get back to Joseph so that we'll understand something about Joseph. That even though that Joseph would make the statement, he would make the statement, and after he would make this statement, one of the most significant things that I see, that Joseph did not commit to sin. It was his brothers. His brothers will commit to sin. But without having an understanding about all this stuff working for their good, because they should have been canceled out because of the sin that they made. Do you know, Jesus Christ, that when Joshua got ready to cross the Jordan River, that when they would send the priest in, the priest would touch the waters first that carried the Ark of the Covenant. After they had touched the waters, the Bible said God told them to lay 12 stones as a memorial. I want you to see all things work together for your good. That even though they committed the act, attempted murder, in our terminology, in our day, that God will allow 12 stones to be placed in the Jordan River as a memorial unto them. So even their acts, their deeds, that God would cancel out their deeds. And how could evil work for good? Then God would use Paul, who persecuted, who put people in prison, who made them renounce who God was in their life, separated family, separated children, even killed people, took the jackets while they stoned Stephen in Acts chapter 7. But God would take the life of a person by the name of Saul, who became Paul, and he would turn that thing, and he would make it good. Yes, I'm talking about all things work together for your good. And I want you to hear me that sometimes, I want you to hear this, that no matter how vulgar a person's life is, how destructive a person's pattern of behavior may be, do you know that God can take that person and use that person for his glory? I know we were all born on the lap of Jesus. I got it. Yet we were sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost when we were knee-high to pews. I got it. But there are some people that wasn't sanctified. They were hellish. Yet they wasn't holy. They were hellish. I know that some people were not spiritual. They were secular. I got it. And God will take, when God said all things work together for your good of them that love the Lord, that are called according to his purpose. Do you not understand that Paul was called according to his purpose? Now, I'm going to try to get off of this. I'm going to get off of this. Because what God is saying, don't count anybody out in this season. They may be lesbian, but don't count anybody out. And I'm trying not to go into the depths of where homosexuality came in. You would have to look through scriptures to find out where it came in. It doesn't matter if they are part of the LGBTQ. A sin is a sin if it's the spirit of perversion, if it's the spirit of lust. Because you look at the sin and not the spirit. Please hear me tonight. Don't disqualify anybody, because God can take that thing and make that thing good. So I'm praying tonight that you understand me, that you hear me. Tonight God is saying I'm making all things good. According to Romans chapter 8 and verse 28, all things. That means all. Everything. All things work together for your good. Everything in your life where it seems like it's not beneficial, it's not rewarding, it's not successful, God is saying, I'm going to take that thing and I'm going to, all things is going to work. It's going to go to work for you. Like you go to work at a job, that thing is going to go to work for you. You employing it, even though you're in pain. But that thing that's been employed in your life as pain or opposition or trials or tribulation, that thing is going to work for your benefit. That thing is going to work for your good. There is not one person in Scripture that this thing that they suffered or that they went through that didn't work for their good. Now, I'm going to say something that's probably challenging for some people to hear. What did he get out of taking the 39 lashes from Rome? I'm trying to be simplistic tonight. 39 lashes from Rome. What did he benefit out of it? What would he get from taking the nails in his hands? The crown of thorns. What did he get out of it? Carrying his own cross. What did he get out of that? Why did the scripture say it pleased the Father to bruise the Son? Why would God even make the statement? Yes. How did he get pleasure out of watching his own son pain? And we think that God would be a bad father. When it said all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord, that love God according to his purpose, that are called according to his purpose. So how is it good? Why would you say that's good? Because I hear people all the time say, why do good people die? How did that work or benefit them if all things work together for the good of them that love God, that are called according to his purpose? And how did God, it pleased the Father to bruise the Son? If you would go to Hebrew chapter 11 in verse 6. For without faith it's impossible to please him. God didn't get pleasure out of seeing his son being bruised. God got pleasure when he saw his son's faith. Many of us are only on display. That God would choose you because he knows that your life is on display. Yes, your life is on display. And God had chose you to make other unbelievers believers through your experience, through your trial, through your tragedy. And it's going to turn in your favor. It's going to work in your favor. That your trial, watch this, is going to give you a testimony, but it's going to transform the unbeliever. I'll say it again. Your trial, yes, that you're going through, is going to give you a testimony. But in you receiving a testimony, it's going to convert and transform the unbeliever. Why would I say that? In the book of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to bow down to a statue when they would hear the sound of the music that they would play and the parliaments that was there. They refused to bow down, and Nebuchadnezzar, it said his countenance had changed toward Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and he said, if you bow down, I'll save you, but if not, if you do not bow down, I'm going to heat the fiery furnace 7 times hotter. And some of you may feel like you're in a fire. Some of you may feel like you're in a furnace. Some of you may feel like the enemy has turned up the heat and you don't know how this is going to work in your benefit. You don't know how you're going to make it out of this. So let me tell somebody today this, because God just placed it in my spirit. There's somebody who think you're going to lose your house. Yes. And the thought on your mind is foreclosure. The thought on your mind is bankruptcy. But I'm here to tell you this tonight, that you're not going to lose that house. There won't be any foreclosure. Neither will there be any bankruptcy. You're not going to lose your property. You're not going to lose your property. You're going to keep that house. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. What was the significance about them carrying the testimony? That God would allow them to go through their trial. You know when the Bible said that you're going through the fiery furnace and you're going to come out as pure silver or pure gold? You're going to come out of this fiery furnace. Do you know that they were pushed in that fiery furnace and it was heated 7 times hotter? 7 times hotter. And the main objective was for transformation. Nebuchadnezzar would say these words, who is this God that can save you from my hands? It said Nebuchadnezzar got his strongest men. And when they pushed him in, his strong men burnt up. They pushed him in, and the only thing that came off Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was the ropes that they had bound them in. You don't know your testimony. You don't know your own strength. You don't know that you're being pushed into this situation where it feels like you are bound, but the things they had bound them in, the ropes that they had bound them in. The only thing that came off of them in that trial was the ropes that the enemy had placed upon them where they were bound. This is your season where God is getting ready to release you in the areas where you're bound because of your enemies. What they had placed on them came off of them, and they were walking in what other people couldn't walk in. They were walking through the trial because God was giving them, even in the trial, a testimony. And what God has placed in your life, you may think is unto death. You may think that this is going to kill you. This is not killing you. It's only going to build you. And God have you in this trial so you can carry a testimony. Now, I want you to hear this, because the Ark of the Covenant was not just called the Ark of the Covenant. And in the book of Exodus, when God would have them to create this Ark of the Covenant, this box, he wouldn't allow them to put it in a permanent place, because the Ark of the Covenant, it had to travel. It had to go somewhere. So they could not keep it in the permanent place when it has to travel. So what God is doing in your life and how he's establishing your life because he's trying to give you a testimony, and your testimony just can't stay with you. This testimony has to be able to travel. Okay. I'm going to talk about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Don't forget about I'm not going to forget about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, because God wanted to use their life to convert the king. To convert the king, to transform the king's mind, to transform the king's mentality. They pushed him in, but they had to promote him out. Could it be that these things that are being formed in your life, that are against you in your life, could it be that people are pushing you in the trial, but you're going to get promoted out of it? They pushed them in only to promote them out. They called them out. They said, we pushed in 3. How many did we push in? We pushed in 3, but there's a 4th. Do you know that before you ever went in the trial, that God was in the trial before you were there? This is why the Bible says, I am the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. I am he that which is, which was, and which is to come. Do you know that God owns tomorrow? That he know exactly what you're going to come in tomorrow, because he's in your tomorrow. Even though he's talking to you today, he pushed them, they pushed him in, but God, the angel was there. He said, there's one that is in the fire, and he looks like the Son of God. Hear me tonight, that all things are working together for your good. They didn't know that being pushed in. And this is what they said. Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer you, which means we're not afraid. We're going to answer you. We are not bowing. We're not bending. And we're not going to burn. When they called them out, they were so impressed because their hair was not even singed. Clothes did not even smell like smoke. And a decree went out. And that decree was that if anybody says anything about the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Nebuchadnezzar makes a decree and says, I'll turn their houses into dunghills. He would literally kill people. They were promoted, and God only wanted to transform a person who put them in the trial. Could it be that the afflictions and the people that are trying to put you in the trial, could it be that God is only using this trial to give you a testimony so that God himself could use your life to transform the life of an unbeliever? Could it be that that thing is working together for your good, and God is allowing this test to come? Do you know you cannot spell the word testimony, yes, without the word test? The first 4 letters of the word testimony is a test. Could it be that this test will seal your testimony, and you have to tell people everywhere you go your testimony of how God brought you out of your dilemma, how God brought you out of your circumstance, how God brought you out of your situation, and you are carrying the testimony? Your life will be a representation of a testimony. Do you know that one of the most powerful things that Satan cannot stand because it converts unbelievers is a testimony. In the book of Revelation, the Bible says that we overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. Yes, for every test, our money comes behind it. Let me give you one of my little small testimonies is something that I went through. I worked at a company for 17 years. And I was one of the new guys, and they struggled with me. Yeah, they struggled with me. And if you would have looked in the environment, you would have think it was because of color, not Christ. And many times, we get it twisted. And we think that this has something to do with our color, because I was amongst other nationalities. It wasn't my color, it was because of my relationship with Christ. Now, we should know this according to Ephesians chapter 6. You ain't wrestling against flesh and blood. So this has nothing to do with color. And even though we can utilize and try to say it's color, but no, this ain't have nothing to do with color. This got something to do with Christ, that the enemies that can use those people that had a different color, they would try to use that as a reference or a point to get me to operate and function in my flesh. But I didn't know that God was placing me in a war. He was placing me in the war because something was getting ready to take place, and that people would carry and see my testimony, and people would know that my love for Christ, and that thing was working for my good. Even though it made me feel bad, that thing was still working for my good. And Christ was getting ready to do something, and there was getting ready to be a shift in my life. He was trying to give me a testimony, but before I can give the testimony, I had to be able to endure the test. They were giving me flack. Every morning I was in the manager's office. I had a meeting every morning about what I didn't do, what I wouldn't accomplish, what I wasn't achieving, what I wasn't doing. Every morning I would, for a matter of 3 months, I couldn't believe it. They wanted to know how much money I got. They say you're making more money than other people. People were offended, not because of color, but because of Christ, but because there were other colors, other nationalities. If you would have functioned from your flesh, you would have responded out of your flesh when you're not wrestling against flesh and blood. This was my season and my hour and my time of promotion. I had to be able to see and understand that this was a test. And in the midst of the trial, for 3 months, I told God, I said, God, I know I'm being tested. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me. He said, will it only be a test, or will a money come behind it? Now, I said, ammonia? What is ammonia? I'm asking God, we having a question. What in the world is ammonia? He said, son, put the word together. Will a testimony come out of this test? And tonight I'm asking you the same thing that God would ask me. Are you going to pass this test? Are you going to pass this test? Because it said all things is working together. You may not see all the ingredients that it's going to take. Yeah, one of your ingredients may be tears. One of your ingredients may be frustration. One of your ingredients may be angry. But it said, be angry, but sin not. Yes, let not the sun go down on your wrath. Neither give place to the devil, according to Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 26. That's one of the ingredients. Could it be that pain is one of the ingredients? This is the ingredients. Could it be? Okay. Well, maybe you don't know how ingredients work. Well, let's give you ingredients of a cake. You have to have eggs, have to have flour, have to have rising powder. You have to have sugar. You have to have butter. You have to have extract. Whatever you're placing in this cake, you must have the ingredients. And all of these ingredients don't look like what's on the box. It don't look like cake. It will not look like a cake. But you have to put all of these ingredients together. And it doesn't look like they would go together. But the second you start mixing these ingredients ingredients would come out as a cake. And this is what God is in reference to. So you're dealing with all this pain, all of this shame. You're dealing with all of this frustration. You're dealing with people lying on you, stabbing you in the back, and you have suffered. Your name, people have talked about your good name, but God is going to restore good names. But this thing is working together for your good. But you just need a mixer. A mixer would beat the things in together. That's what I'm saying. The mixer would bring everything together, but it has to be whipped. It has to be beat. Just listen to what I'm trying to tell you. It feels like you're being beat. It feels like you're being defeated. It feels like you're being whipped. Do you know, please hear me, what holds the cake together? It's not the sugar. It is not the flour. It is not the butter or the shortening. It is not the vanilla extract. It is not the secret things that you would put in there. What holds the cake together is the yolks. What's going to hold you together in this time of trying, in this time of testing, before God can give you your testimony, is your yoke. Jesus said, my yoke is easy and my burdens are light. You have no idea that God is saying in this season, yoke up with me. My yoke is easy and my burdens are light. And I know you're using the same reference to the yoke that's in the egg and the yoke that's on an animal. But Jesus is saying that yoke, if this yoke holds the cake together, to stop it from falling apart. God has said, if you take my yoke, as in the yoke of the egg, if you take my yoke, then you won't fall apart. He that keeps his mind stayed on me, he's going to keep you in perfect peace. Yes, but you have to keep your mind stayed on him, according to Isaiah chapter 26. Keep your mind stayed on him, and this thing is going to work together for your good. Okay. Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11 says, for I know the thoughts that I think towards you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Listen, the end that God expects, it must be good. He said, I'm going to give you an expected end. God said, I already know the thoughts that I think towards you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. So there's an end that God has already anticipated that he's expecting. Even God has faith in your end. That's what expectation is. Expected end. God said, I expect this to be the end. I know. How do he know the end? He knows the end from the beginning. God knows the end from the beginning, so he has an expectation of how it's going to come out, and that thing is going to come out good. Whether it look good, whether it feel good, God is going to make sure that all things, not some, not a few, not a couple, all things is working together for your good. Now, I'll explain it to you from the world. According to some scientists, they say the world turns on an axis 360 degrees. So it turns. Now, the challenge with us is that we don't see, as we stand upon the earth, you don't see the earth turning. Matter of fact, you don't even feel it. But according to scientists, studies say this earth will turn. It will rotate. So night or day becomes night, and night becomes day. In the rotating or the turning, you don't see it. You can't feel it. So it's the same thing if the earth revolves and the earth turns on a 360-degree axis, then when the Bible says, now and the earth, watch this, please hear me, all things work together. So you won't be able to feel it. You may not be able to see it, but this thing is turning. This thing is rotating. This thing is positioned for God expected end in your life, and you're going to gravitate to it, and God is going to give you a testimony outside of this test, because the enemy understands that if they make it through this, they're going to convert other believers. All things work together. You overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the words of your testimony. The words of your testimony is a place where the enemy was defeated in your life, and the enemy will be defeated in your life because God is finna give you your own words of testimony. So when the Ark of the Covenant was called the testimony, please hear me. That was a place when Eli and his sons, Eli wouldn't condition his sons nor discipline his sons. The Ark of the Covenant was taken. And some of you feel you may be taken or overtaken by your situation. The Philistines took it. They took it and they put it in their Lord's house. I want you to hear this, please, to this. They took what they called the Ark of the Covenant, which was also called the testimony. And the Bible said by them taking it, God broke out on them. He sent emerods on their lower parts, in their groin area. They had boils, sores. He took it because they took what they considered to be the testimony and tried to put it in their house. And God would break out. Plagues would break out. Plagues will break out. So please hear what I'm saying. So if people think they can take you away mentally, they can take you away in anguish. They can try to take you. And God is saying, wherever they have tried to take you, whatever they have been discussing you, wherever they have tried to take you, where they think that they're lords. My God. In the book of Psalms, Psalm chapter 2, the Bible said, why do the heathens rage and the people imagine a vain thing against the Lord and against his anointed? Saying, let us cast their cords away from us. Let us put them in sunder. The Bible said that he that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. He shall laugh and put them in derision. It's God about to put them in derision because they have touched what God considered to be his testimony. They have touched the ark, the covenant that you have with God. You are the ark of the covenant. They have touched the covenant that you and God have, and they have tried to touch your testimony. This is why the enemy is upset. And the Bible said God broke out on anybody that touched them. Now, to even go further, and I'm trying not to go too far, because the enemy look like they have the advantage. It looked like they have the upper hand. And God is saying, nope. This thing is finna work together for your good. All things are working together for your good. If you can't see the difference, I promise you, if you stay long enough, this thing will bring you into a place of maturity. For as long as you remain in God, this thing is going to work together for your good. Now, this is in my spirit to say. It's in my spirit to say. That some people, your marriages are dead. Some people, you feel like your finances are dead. Some people, like Lazarus, would die. And Mary and Martha did not understand, because they said, had you been here, you could have saved him. Jesus said, did not that I tell you that if you believe, that you would see the glory of God? Did not I tell you that if you believe? And tonight I'm trying to express that something may have died. Death only means separation. So there is something that you have in your life that you were connected to, where you have been separated from. Yeah, you can stay in the house and still be in separation. You can sleep in the same bed and still be in separation. And the marriage, y'all can be separated. And the house is divided. So how could that house stand? So the enemy's main objective is to separate you through trials and tribulation. So sometimes the enemy himself would bring division, bring complications. Yes, bring confusion into your house and into your marriage where there's separation, and that thing appears as if it is dead. Your relationship with your children, it appears dead. There was a separation. And Jesus said, if you only believe, I know it don't look like this is going to turn or work together for your good. I'm telling you now that this thing, do you know it only took one word? Lazarus, or 2 words, 3 words, Lazarus, come forth. God would call Lazarus by name, come forth, and that thing, the thing that they said, please hear me, the thing that they put in the grave, they put grave clothes on Lazarus, and Jesus would call him forth. Jesus said, remove the stones. Listen to me. Every stone or every grave that people are speaking against your marriage, the Lord, at some point when this thing turns, the stone will be removed. The grave that they try to put your marriage in, the grave that they try to put your job in, the grave that they try to put your children in, the grave, when they say your children are acting wild, your children are acting sporadic, your children are acting crazy, they tried to put your children inside of a grave, saying that it was over for them. The Bible said God told them to remove the stone. And their reply or response was, he's already stinking. And some of you may be saying, it's already stinking. It's already decayed. This thing is already rotten, which means there's no life because it's deteriorated. But the God we serve specializes in deterioration. And you cannot be deterred while watching or being or seeing things deteriorate. You cannot be. And this is what's in my spirit that God is telling me. That just as he had called Lazarus forth and told him to remove the stones, and then he said, take the grave clothes off you put on him. Those clothes that you have committed to him for him to stay buried. He said, take those grave clothes off of him. And God is taking the grave clothes off. The stuff that people have tried to put over in your life. The stuff that people have tried to put on your children. The stuff where doctors have tried to label you and said that you would have this sickness unto death. No, God is saying today he's taking the grave clothes off and he's removing the stone. And today is going to be a day of resurrection where things are getting ready to be resurrected in your life. And what people thought would be death, they would see life. And God would give people a testimony. Because all things would now work together for your good. Everything. But every pain that you would experience, every pain that you would have to endure, that Jesus would have. Okay. I'm going to say this and I'm done. Let's look at the life of Jesus and I'm done with his testimony. That Jesus needed Judas more than he needed Peter. Why would I say that? Because Jesus could not get back to the right hand of the Father with Peter, but he needed Judas to betray him so that the prophecy could be fulfilled. That he can now take the keys of hell and death. He didn't need Peter to do that, but he needed Judas. So sometimes an adversary is the greatest answer that you'll need for your testimony and for you to get to the place where God said you need to be. This is why the Bible says that God prepares a table in the presence of your enemies. Sometimes you need enemies to give you the guided direction on where God wants to take you, and this thing is going to turn for your good. You don't know that God needs a table. The table is prepared, but the table may be prepared, but if you don't have no enemies, then you don't have a testimony, so you can't eat. How can your cup run over? How can your head be anointed with oil? How can God bring you into the abundance? You need some type of opposition or adversity. So this adversity and this challenge that you are experiencing where you think things are through, they're not through. You're getting ready to go through. David said, although I go through the valley of the shadow of death. David said he knows the valley what he was going in. I know the valley that I must go through. But David was coming out on the other side. And tonight I'm telling you, you're going to come out on the other side. You're going to have a testimony. All things is working together for your good. For your good. Believe it or not, it's going to benefit you. It's going to prosper you. This is going to elevate you. God is going to esteem you. I promise you, God is going to use you in a catastrophic way. That transformation is going to take place because of your test, which will give you a testimony. Because you have to carry your testimony where God is about to lead you. Make no mistake about what I'm saying. All things are working together for your good. It's working. It's working. It's just like a puzzle. You know how puzzles are? You can see the front of the box and all the pieces are together. But when you get and you open the box up, opening the box, guess what you find? It's in pieces. And some of you have all the pieces, but you're puzzled because you don't know how to put it together. And God is saying you don't have to try to put it together because it's in pieces and you're puzzled. It's His responsibility in His job. All things work together for your good. And tonight God is making sure all things work together for your good. Because you're called according to His purpose. You're destined for greatness. This pain is only temporary. Please hear me. Never make a permanent decision in temporary pain. A lot of our decisions become permanent in a temporary place. And we never finish the test, and we never carry the testimony because we made the decision to quit or give up when we were taking the test. You do know if you were in school that when it's test time, the teacher doesn't talk. And the test is timed. This is why the Bible said the enemy understands that his time is short. When the teacher is given the test, that test is timed. Has a time stamp on it. And what you need to understand tonight, that the enemy only has a short time. He understands that his time is short. He doesn't have a long time with you. So you cannot make a permanent decision in temporary pain. His time is short. It's time. And even though you take a test when you were in school, the teacher never leaves the room. You may think that God is not present while you're taking your test, but can I assure you, He's in the room. He's present. He's in you. He's present. Why do you think the Bible said that God is touched by the feelings of your infirmity? He's in you. He's touched by it. So he feels how you feel. And there's a reward coming because of your pain. Listen to me. Your reward will always be greater than your pain. Yes, your reward will always be greater than your pain. Will always be. Make no mistake about it. God will always reward you, as in the book of Job, where it stated that God gave Job twice as much as he had before because of his pain. Look at his testimony. Please hear me. The Bible that we know, that we love, that we study, that we read today, we see the trial of their faith. In the book of James, James chapter 1, verse 2, where it says, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptation, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have a perfect work, that you may be entire and wanting nothing. God is saying, I want you to hear this, that the trial of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have a perfect, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Do you understand that when God said all things work together for your good, for the good of them that love the Lord, that are called according to his purpose? Do you understand that this trial that you're in is trying to bring you into a place where you don't want nothing? It used the word perfect. Count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience, but let patience have its perfect work. Patience need to be perfected, that you may be entire. The word entire means whole. It means complete. And wanting nothing. God is trying to get you to see that all things is working together. Don't feel like it. Don't look like it. But this thing is working for you. Yes. It's working on your behalf. It's working for you. It's going to benefit you. And God is going to remove the joy of the oppressor that's trying to oppress your life. He's removing the joy of the oppressor. And you're going to be successful in this season. And you're going to see the end of your trial. Yes, you're going to see the end. And I thank you tonight for tuning in to my show called Living Water. Now, maybe tomorrow I'll talk about Generational Altars Part 2, but God keeps shifting my message, I guess, based on who's watching. He's shifting it. But all things are working together for your good. For one, you have been called. And adhere to the calling of God. Adhere. You've been called. So thank you, and we'll see you next week on Living Water.
Hi, everyone. I like to personally thank you for participating in our online broadcast at Deliverance Temple House of Refuge. We pray that you enjoyed the message. If you are not part of our online family, Please subscribe to our channel and never miss one of our life-changing and uplifting broadcasts. If you are in the Pearland area on Sunday, join us at one of our powerful worship services at 8 a.m., 10 a.m., or 12 p.m., or on Friday at 7 p.m. We look forward to serving you, your family, and friends. If you happen to miss one of our messages, you can find them on one of our platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. We truly appreciate you investing your time with us.